So with the release of the recent School of Lock event, in addition to Marciana, we actually got a sneak peek at 2 other units that will hopefully be arriving in Nikke soon. I'm not sure if this is intentional or not, but if you go into the Nikkepedia, you can actually see that Naga and Tia both have been registered in the database. Now, I don't plan on discussing leaks on this channel, but since they already released their kits and they're publicly available for everyone to see, I'm going to do somewhat of a pre-analysis on their kits and give some thoughts about what I think how good they are. My name is Psyche, and without further ado, let's jump right in. So I'm going to be approaching this video from the perspective of a low spender. Since we're approaching the first anniversary and Shift Up seems to be very keen on draining everyone's wallets, my rationale for pulling for new units basically comes down to what's the likelihood that I can get away with not pulling for a unit. Of course, my knowledge of these 2 units will be somewhat limited since no one can actually use them in combat, but after analyzing their kit as well as some discussions online, I think I have a pretty good handle on their strengths and weaknesses. Alright, let's start with Tia first. She is a rocket launcher type 1 unit. Skill 1 will trigger whenever Tia's cover is repaired. Cooldown of burst is reduced and it stacks up to 2 times and lasts for 12 seconds. It also gives all allies an attack damage up for 10 seconds. Now, I need to focus on this part a bit first, but the wording says attack damage instead of attack up. I don't know if there's a difference between the two. We don't have the data yet, but I think this distinction between the 2 types of buff needs to be considered. Skill 2. After landing 5 attacks, Tia's own cover's health will be increased based on her max HP, and grants taunt for 5 seconds. Upon using her burst skill, the cover will be repaired by a percentage of her max HP. At first, I thought the wording here referred to the efficacy of how much cover gets recovered, but the most logical conclusion is that she just repairs the cover. She will also recover attack damage for 10 seconds. This part is a little confusing. I'm not entirely sure what it refers to here, but I'm assuming that she recovers HP that's equivalent to a certain percentage of her attack damage. Kinda like how Helm works. We'll have to see though. Burst. 40 seconds by default, Tia will generate a shield equivalent to her max HP for 10 seconds. She will also generate a weaker shield for all allies too. It will also re-enter you into Burst Stage 1, so it's very similar to Christmas Rupee, where you have to put another Type 1 unit in the team. Okay, so from this kit, we can see that Tia has a cover repair mechanic. The only other units in the game that have this ability are Leader and Biscuit. While this does sound nice, there is a major caveat with repairing cover. If you tap on the mechanic on detail, this mechanic will only work if a unit's cover is broken but not completely blown out. If a unit does not have any cover left, repair cover buffs will not trigger. Given that Tia has a taunt effect, if her cover gets destroyed, then her skill 1 is bricked. It just won't work anymore. So that's quite important to keep in mind. Her skill 1 also gives cooldown reduction on her burst, which assuming that the amount of CDR you get scales with level. At level 10, you can have a maximum reduction of 26 seconds, meaning her burst cooldown will become 14 seconds instead of 40. However, just keep in mind that while Tia's burst cooldown is reduced, it does not reduce anyone else's, meaning you might run into the awkward situations where you think you're ready to burst again, but you still have to wait until your other units' bursts are ready since they don't have cooldown reduction. This also means you have to run another Type 1 unit in the team, so the max amount of Type 3 DPSs will be 2. Although one last advantage that Tia has is that since she is a rocket launcher user, you can manually fire off 5 rockets really fast and trigger her skill 2. This does give a bit more freedom of when to taunt enemies, so that's something at the very least. With all that in mind, let's also take a look at Naga's kit. She is a shotgun Type 2 unit. Skill 1, after 12 normal attacks, she will repair everyone's cover. When a shield is applied to her, all allies will do increased damage to enemy cores for 10 seconds. Skill 2, after 5 normal attacks, the 2 allies with the highest attack will do even more damage to enemy cores. For the 2 allies with the lowest health percentage, it will also recover their health. The burst ability, 20-second cooldown. Naga will gain Pierce for 10 seconds, all allies will get an attack up, and when applied a shield, all allies will get a further boost in attack. So Naga's kit focuses on a supportive role. She gives a healthy amount of attack ups to allies, as well as specializing in increasing damage done to enemy cores. This is a new niche that the game hasn't explored yet, so in certain boss fights, it can be very good. But there's quite a number of caveats with this kit. The first is that Naga herself does not generate shields. Since Tia would be the only type 1 unit in the game that does that at the moment, Naga's buffs that requires a shield will not trigger if you don't have Tia in the team. The two will complement each other's kit a lot, since Naga repairs cover, which procs Tia's skill 1, and Tia generates a shield for everyone, which Naga will also benefit from. From some online discussion, the pair is considered as a bunny comp 2.0. Which I can definitely see. But overall, I think the OG bunnies are still slightly better than this, as Naga and Tia do have some drawbacks that I will explain. Now, unlike the bunny twins who absolutely need each other to work, while it's super convenient to have both Naga and Tia, it's technically not mandatory to have both. Tia's buffs from repairing cover can be achieved by Leader or Biscuit, and Naga's shield buffs can be triggered by Senti's skill 2 if you time the burst right. How awkward your rotation becomes, I'm not sure since we don't have a way to test that, but I do want to state that while it seems like the two were made for each other, you don't need both like a strict requirement compared to the bunny comp. Let's start with probably the largest gap in this duel. Tia's power level goes down dramatically if her cover is completely broken. Currently, the only unit that can regenerate a broken cover is Biscuit, but she is miles behind Leader in terms of support capabilities. Given that Naga and Tia are already the main supports in the team, Leader will be amazing to have for general attack up and CDR, and even complements the cover repair mechanic. This means, at least in my eyes at the moment, that the Tia/Naga comp is good if your cover is expected to last for the whole fight. If you're up against Modernia or something, then this comp is not gonna work. None of your units will have cover for the entirety of the fight. Now, one thing that I will give Tia compliments is the shield generation. How shields work in this game may be a little different than you think. If we use Senti for an example, she generates a shield for all allies to a certain percentage of their health. Shields are essentially extra bonus health that gets appended to the end of your health bar. Except if an enemy attack were to exceed the health of the shield, it actually does not overflow into a unit's health. So if you have 10 points of shield and the enemy attack does 500 damage, the shield is broken, but the unit does not take any damage to their actual health total. This makes Senti quite effective in bosses that like to do burst damage, like Chatterbox's slam attack. Tia's burst also re-enters burst skill gauge 1, meaning you have to have another type 1 unit in the team to enter full burst. I definitely think of this as a demerit, as with the cooldown reduction from repairing cover, she can actually reduce her burst cooldown to a maximum of 14 seconds, which is enough to burst every rotation. So technically, a second type 1 is totally not needed. Let's talk about Naga now. She has a soft requirement of needing a shield in order to proc some of her abilities. But unlike the cover mechanic, you can technically still trigger this as long as Tia is still alive. You get additional core damage and a further attack boost if you do have a shield, which are very nice bonuses to have. The core damage niche is a little questionable though. Not all bosses have cores, and assuming that they do, it might not be the easiest to hit. Now, I'm assuming that the additional core damage is calculated additively, so it will become 200% base, plus around 85% at max skill level, to result in a total of 285% core damage instead. This is a sizable improvement, but since core damage is different than crit damage, this assumes that the enemy has a core to begin with, and said core is relatively easy to hit. Okay, so overall, I would say just from looking at their kit and comparing it to what we already have in the game, they are a potent support comp if certain conditions are met, but I will give them slightly less of a priority than the bunny comp, who are good unconditionally in every setup. I think what I'll do in future pre-analysis videos is that I'll try to put on a pessimistic mindset and critique absolutely everything I can. If there is a possible weakness that a unit has, I will point that out. So what about the schoolgirl comp? It's really hard to tell, but I do want to state that I don't believe that they're not without deficiencies, and I will personally hold out until a meta-analysis comes through before pulling. With the first anniversary right around the corner, if I can justify not pulling a unit, then I'm just not gonna pull them. What I'm trying to say is that I don't believe that they are that powerful, as some people out there are saying. I think they're a good alternative to the bunny comp if those units are taken already. And I think their defensive/offensive skills are a good blend, but this is assuming that their conditions are met, and they do have a number of them. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this brief pre-analysis on the second portion of the School of Lock units. I'm assuming that Naga and Tia will drop as a pair in the gacha in the next event. Again, I'm personally holding out on my gems before committing to any pulls, because just like the bunnies, you probably want both of them. Anyways, I'll be working on the next volume of the bootcamp, so thanks for watching, and always remember, have fun with the game.